Hello everybody, welcome again to another Sunday Night Live. This is the last Sunday Night Live of July. Good grief, we are almost through the summer. It's ridiculous, it's bonkers, it's crazy that the year 2022 has gone by so quickly, but here we are. So I hope everybody is doing well. I've been having a great week because I'm on vacation time. And I've had a fantastic week away from work. I've been all over the place in various different parts of Scotland. It's been fantastic. I've had a very relaxing time with my family. And it's just been nice to take a break from work, which has been very, very, very busy recently. Lots and lots of things going on, which of course I cannot say a word about. So, but yeah, it's been pretty cool this last week. Weather-wise, it's been very nice, pleasantly warm. Unlike the week before, where we had like temperatures up near 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which for Scotland is a record. We have never had temperatures up that high before, but we did last week, which was crazy. But yeah, it's much more kind of normal warm for Scotland, which is about, maybe 68, 69, 70 degrees, which is normal for a Scottish summer. So it's been pretty nice. So let's see. I noticed that Ken Moss is here. That is one name that did stand out. He is one of my moderators, and he's not been around for a wee while. He's not been able to get along to the show live, but he's here, which is really cool. Hey, Ken, hope you're doing well. I'm glad you're here. I did see that there are some rumors that you were online because you were having some fun gambling and stuff. I'm sure that's not true. I don't know that you participate in such things, but I don't know. Maybe you do. And if you do, I hope you did well. All right, the other thing I also know, Billy Morgan was the first one in the house. He was insanely early, followed by Paul Morgan and Rich Cresswell, now known as My Personas, which is cool. He's here. Andrew Lamb is also here. Ronald Figura is here as well. Kyle Rajuziak, basically all the regulars are here, including Kevin's Guitar Stories and Don Oliver, and as I mentioned, Ken Moss is here as well. Dwayne is here. Let's see who else is here. I think I'm not seeing any other names in the chat, but I'm pretty sure we got more than that here. Just Bob is here. Old School Funk and Soul says he is here, which is great. And Keith Tradwick, the sheep exploded into haggis, is here. Well, I didn't know that you were a sheep, to be honest, Keith, and I didn't know that you liked haggis, but, there we go. Kyle, that's just too funny. Kyle says Fender / Presonus has agreed to fund development of preset number 7. Yes, that is the breaking news, folks. That preset number 7 will be implemented in future builds of Studio One, and Notion as well is also going to get preset 7. And probably I can foresee Presonus Hub also getting preset 7. Because I think that would be value added for customers that want to use preset 7 in other DAWs like Pro Tools or Ableton Live or Logic or Cubase. So, and maybe just the fact that they will in the future get preset 7 for Presonus Hub means that they will come over to Studio One from whatever DAW they're using, which I think would be epic. So, Kyle, I think maybe your preset number 7 is just a stroke of genius. I think it is, and I can foresee that my phone is actually somebody's actually trying to call me. Yeah, I don't know who the hell that was, but anyway, somebody was trying to phone me. Very rude of them. Unless it's one of you guys trying to tell me that the stream's not working, Which it doesn't seem to be the case. We seem to be streaming pretty healthily, which is nice. Let's see, what else do we have? Ken says he's back from vacation. He said we visited some casinos, but I'm not much of a gambler. Refuse to lose more than what a fab filter plugin would cost me. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't really do that kind of thing at all. All right, Billy Morgan is saying he's having some problems with YouTube. He says my chat is still below the main screen. Have to scroll down to see chat. Okay, well that's a bit crap. So what I'm suggesting, Billy, that you do is that you close your browser altogether, and then restart your browser. Make sure you end the task from the task manager for the browser as well, so that it is not loaded into your computer and it is not cached anymore. And then just drop back in and see if it's orientated the correct way. It could just be a graphics glitch. These things do happen from time to time. I've seen a few weird things happen with YouTube before, and that's not one of them. But I have seen some weird things like that going down. Rich says it's Persona's calling you due to the NDA on preset number 7. Yeah, you could be right. I could actually be about to lose my job. Okay, yeah. Billy, I hope that will resolve that issue for you. Just Bob says, can you explain how the circle of fifths works? I actually have a video that kind of talks about changing key. And we've discussed changing key before in Songwriting Simplified shows. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say Songwriting Simplified shows, I'm talking about a show that Jonny Geib and I do together on a Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central. Most of the time we do it on his channel, the Home Studio Trainer channel, but sometimes I host it here on my own. And either way, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool show. And so we look at some music theory concepts, we look at arranging concepts, we look at lyric writing sometimes. We discuss all things to do with what goes into writing a song. And the idea is, it's called Songwriting Simplified because we like to kind of look at some of these more complex ideas and distill them down into something that's simple that you can take away at the end of a show and start to apply to your songs. So that's the broad premise of Songwriting Simplified. And we've discussed it before, but I'm going to just do a quick hunt of my computer and see if I still have my circle of fifths diagram that I used in that video, albeit I did use that a very long time ago, so it might be on one of my external drives. Let's see if I can find it, because that diagram's going to be really handy. Let's see if I can find it. Documents. Because if I can find that document, we can have a good look at it. Does not appear to be there. Let's try that folder. These are all listed alphabetically, so I should be able to find it. If I can't find it, then I will just improvise, frankly. I would have thought it would have been there, but I'm not seeing it in that folder. Huh. Let's try this one. Doubt it's going to be in this one, but I'll check. No, it's not there. Okay, it might take me a wee while to try and find this, so I don't want to waste anybody's time. So essentially, I will discuss kind of what it is. The circle of fifths is essentially how it's a diagram that represents all the key signatures in the 12-tone equal temperament system. So we're talking all the 12 major keys and all the 12 minor keys. And it's done as a diagram. And maybe I can see if I can do a Google image search for it. So you can see what it looks like. Circle of fifths. Diagram. Is this one going to do it? No, that's... I don't want one that's... here we go. Here we go. Let's open that up, and I will let you have a wee look. All right, so as you can see up here, here, there we go. There it is. I have to remember the image is reversed for me. Up here is the circle of fifths. Now, what you will see here is that it goes round in this kind of motion. All right, until you get all the way back to the beginning again. And so in this direction, you have sharp keys until you get to the 6 o'clock position. And this is when it kind of enharmonically switches from sharp keys to flat keys. As you can see here, F sharp can also enharmonically, I know that's a big word, and I'll kind of unpack a little bit of what that means, can also be G flat. So F sharp major can also be G flat major. Okay? And F sharp sounds exactly the same as G flat. They sound precisely identical, but both keys exist together. Okay? And then when you keep going around towards this 7 o'clock position, the last of the sharp keys is available. Now, these keys here can be theoretical keys. C flat and C sharp are a little bit kind of theoretical. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Did not mean to do that. Kind of made that just a lot tinier. There we go. Yeah, so C flat and C sharp major are kind of a little bit of theoretical keys. They don't tend to really exist or really get used that much. But D flat major does. And then we keep going in this direction, getting later in the evening, and we're in flat keys. Now, you can see here that we start with 6 flats, and then we go 5, 4, 3, 2, then 1, and then we're back round to C. C major has no sharps, no flats. It's natural. And as you can see, there are numbers here that tell you how many flats or how many sharps are in the key signature. So the outer circle is the major keys. The inner circle are their relative minors. So C major, its relative minor is A minor, G major, E minor, D, B, A, F sharp minor, E, C sharp minor, and so on, all the way around. Now notice that as we go round this way through 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, all the way around to 6 o'clock, you increase the number of sharps in the key signature. And then once you go past 6 o'clock, you start with a large number of flats, i.e. G flat major having 6 flats, and then they start to go down. So we go 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. It's just something to observe. It doesn't mean anything. It's just something to look at. So you will know from Studio One, if you have Studio One Professional, that there is a chord selector for the chord track. And that is based loosely upon this diagram, just because it's easy. Now we call it the cycle of fifths or circle of fifths because each key is a fifth apart when you go in this clockwise motion. If you go in this anti-clockwise motion, so you go through flat keys and then through sharp keys to come all the way back round, they are in fourths. So the interval between a C and a G is a fifth. Interval between a G and a D is another fifth. D to A is also a fifth. So that's why it's called a circle of fifths, because each key signature going clockwise is a fifth from the next one. And when we're going clockwise, we're adding sharps, and then eventually we switch over to flats, and then we start losing flats. And that's how that works. But you can also go round the other way. It's not like a clock, it's not strict that you can only go clockwise. You can go anti-clockwise if you want as well. But essentially that is what the circle of fifths is all about. It's just a way of giving you a visual representation of what the keys are and what accidentals are required to make a major scale or a minor scale in each of their respective keys, whether major or minor. So in the key of G, to make a major scale, you need an F sharp. In the key of D, we need an F sharp and a C sharp to make a major scale. And you keep going round. So the whole concept of key signatures, if you don't know what a key signature is or what a key signature does, is it just means that for composers, when you're writing notation, rather than having to write the flat signs or the sharp signs in front of each individual note, which can make music notation actually harder to read, what we do is we put all the sharps required for a certain key signature at the start of the piece of music. So if you've got something like C flat major, which has 7 flats, for example, so you have B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, C flat, and F flat. Believe it or not, yes, you can have a C flat and an F flat. So rather than writing those accidentals as you go through your piece of music, you put them all at the start. And this tells the performer, okay, every time I see a B in the score, it's going to be a B flat. Or every time I see a C, it's going to be a C sharp. And then anytime it's not going to be a C sharp, let's say we're in the key of D, and the composer says, I don't want you to play a C sharp on this particular occasion, then there is a sign, which is this sign here, which is called the natural sign. And what this does is this temporarily says, don't play a C sharp, play a normal C natural instead. And so wherever the rule for each key signature needs to be broken, so you need a natural instead of a sharp or a flat, you use the natural sign. And that just temporarily says, hey, we're going to temporarily suspend the rule just for this measure. And then the next measure, the normal rule for the song is continues. So whether that's 1 sharp for G major or, 6 flats for G flat major. So that's essentially the circle of fifths and what it does and why it is a thing and why we use it. It's a frame of reference to help you understand key signatures, basically. And it actually helps you show which key signatures are related to each other. Either they are a relative minor or, how you can get from one to another quite easily. Or how distantly related one key is to another. All right, so I hope that helps. That's a great question, though. I like that. All right, so Billy's fixed his issue. There you go. He restarted his browser. Yep, I thought that might do it. I thought it was basically just a bad piece of graphics data cached somehow. Let's see. When does the circle of fifths date to? Good question. Not really sure. But we can find out. And in fact, Kyle has gone and done that. It was invented by Nikolai Deletsky in the late 1670s treatise on composition called Grammatica. In 1728, Johann David Heinschen improved upon the design. But yes, it's actually pretty old. And it's based on a much older system of keys and modes and that kind of thing that predates it. But it wasn't really formalized until 12-tone equal temperament was kind of becoming more formalized. So when Bach wrote his 48 Preludes and Fugues, for example, that was in celebration of the fact that we now have this equal tempered system, and he called the whole thing the well-tempered clavier, basically the fixed keyboard, which is what the well-tempered clavier essentially means. It's a bad translation from the German, but essentially what it meant was it is the fixed piano. Now every semitone, regardless of octave on the whole keyboard, is equal. So every semitone is equal, and it never used to be that way. Before equal temperament, the lower you went on the keyboard, whether it's an organ or a harpsichord or a clavichord, or even the very early versions of the piano, the lower down you went, the wider that semitone interval became, and the more out of tune it therefore became. So it got a little bit flatter down low, and then going further up, the interval got sharper. So the interval would get smaller down up the top, and the interval of a semitone would get bigger the lower you went. And so that would create problems for not only the keyboard being kind of in tune with itself, but it created problems for other musicians being able to play together because they could be not in tune with each other. So this whole equal temperament system was devised, and because of that, you could derive a set of key signatures that would work within that framework. And so that is kind of why you have something like a circle of fifths. It's very, very formalized now, but it's been around for a long, long time. So this chart I just found on Wikipedia. If you look up circle of fifths on Wikipedia, you'll find it there, and you can actually download this chart and keep it for yourself. From what we can see in history books, circle of fifths was invented by Pythagoras. It may have been invented by Pythagoras. He certainly had some influential ideas about dividing an octave into 12 steps. But yeah, it wasn't really formalized until equal temperament was really kind of formalized. But there you go. So it's actually pretty old. And as Waveform says, you know, the germinal ideas of equalizing the octave and equalizing things has been around for a long time, but nobody really knew how to do it. Certainly nobody knew how to formalize it, how to codify it. But a lot of what stands for the foundation of equal temperament came from Pythagoras's ideas of I mean, he looked at it from a mathematical point of view of frequencies and that kind of thing. And so it worked for him, and he worked on that idea and developed it pretty well. Papa Raptor Music is here as well. He says, "Good evening, I'm late to the party." Well, I'm glad you're here. That's awesome. We've been looking at a pretty cool question on the circle of fifths, which is pretty cool. Can I actually go back to this article? Yes, I can. The article itself is actually really useful. It's okay. It's not brilliantly accurate in some respects, but some of it's actually pretty accurate. You have to remember the thing with Wikipedia, although it's a pretty massive resource, it's, you know, articles are written by members of the public. So you have no idea, you know, the musicological credentials of people writing musicological articles like this one on the circle of fifths. We don't know who the author is. We don't know what their background is. We don't know what their credentials are. So there can be considerable errors in this. But yeah, there are some sources that suggest that Pythagoras kind of started inventing the concept of a circle of fifths. but there's no real massive evidence of it. There are some sources that say yes, he did, and there are some sources that say he, that they just make no mention of him at all. Because Pythagoras was mostly thinking about the science of harmonics, and he is definitely credited with having devised a system of tuning based upon the interval of a fifth, but did not tune more than 8 notes, and there was not really a whole body of work on the concept. But yeah, Nikolai Diletsky wrote that treatise that I mentioned, that Kyle researched, called Grammatica, which is very, very cool. And when you're studying musicology, it's kind of the first thing you study, really. But yeah, there you go. And so there's a whole bunch on here on the Baroque era and the Baroque, kind of use of the relatively new equal temperament. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot of musical examples that you can look at and you can listen to as well. So there's some Baroque ones. There's a piece by Handel here. There's this piece. There's another piece here. Whose is this one? Oh, that's Handel's as well. Alessandro Marcello's works are here, and then there's some Schubert, and there's all sorts of stuff. And there's some stuff on jazz here, and then there's also stuff on enharmonic equivalents and theoretical keys. I'm going to show you this section. Key signatures found on the bottom of the circle of fifths, such as D flat major, are often written one way in flats and another way using sharps. These keys are easily interchanged using enharmonic equivalents. Enharmonic means that the notes sound the same but are written differently. For example, the key of D flat major with 5 flats contains the same sounding notes enharmonically as C sharp major, which has 7 sharps. After C sharp comes the key of G sharp, following the pattern of being a fifth higher and coincidentally enharmonically equivalent to the key of A flat. The 8th sharp is placed on the F sharp to make it F double sharp. The key of D sharp with 9 sharps has another sharp being placed on the C sharp, making it C double sharp. So once you start getting into key signatures that have double sharps and double flats, you're getting into the realms of key signatures that really don't exist. They are theoretically, as in, if you keep going up a fifth, you land on another key signature. And you can find another enharmonic way of stating a particular note. So the key of E, for example, has 4 sharps, but is also the equivalent to the theoretical key of F flat, again being 1/5 below the key of C flat. But this would mean that the last flat is placed on B flat, making it B double flat. So these are theoretical keys, and they don't really exist. Although, if you are working with microtonal keys, where the octave is divided into more than 12 semitones, then these theoretical keys will become much more practical for you. But that's if you're into, really advanced stuff. Most of you guys are not into really advanced stuff, working in, key signatures as F flat, for example. But, I thought I'd kind of raise that as a point. Paparaptor Music says, I hope I'm not asking something you already covered, but where did the idea of whole, half, whole, half for the major scale come from, or does anyone really know? Yeah, there is a reason why the major scale has that particular build to it. And again, we can pull this from Wikipedia. Just because it's a handy thing to have. But it's basically it's a 7-pitched scale as you will already know. But it's also based out, it's also not based on, but it's also known as the Ionian Mode. So if you look at things like the Dorian Mode, Mixolydian Mode, Phrygian, and all of those other Gregorian modes, then this is one of those. But it's the one that we also know as the major scale, and it's a diatonic scale, meaning that particularly in the key of C, it's kind of like the bare bones of the building blocks of music. So hang on just one second. So a major scale is a diatonic scale, and the sequence of intervals are whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, which is what you just said. And basically, you've got two almost identical tetrachords. What's a tetrachord? You're going to ask. It's a series of 4 notes separated by 3 intervals. So you got 2 of those, and then you've got a whole tone kind of in the middle. So that's kind of why it has that balance to it. But it's basically, the idea is that even though it's a 7-note scale, it's an odd numbered scale. It does have some balance to it. So that's why each tetrachord consists of 2 whole tones followed by a semitone. So whole, there you get whole, whole, and half. And then you get another whole tone. So there's your tetrachord there, and there's your other one. So those are your 2 tetrachords with an interval of a whole tone between the 2. So C, D, E, F is 1 tetrachord, then G, A, B, C. So you get whole, 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 half, whole, 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 half. All right. So, but yeah, that's kind of why they are the way they are, and it's a little bit hard to wrap your head around. But yeah, it's the Ionian Mode, and from it you can derive chords. You can derive relationships between chords and other chords based on those degrees of the scale. We've talked about 2-5-1s. What is a 2-5-1? It's basically a chord built on the 2nd degree of the scale. 1, 2, and then 5 to 1. So 2, 5, 1. But basically that's how the major scale kind of came into being, really. But you can dive in deep into it. But there's another little diagram here. Hang on, let's see if I can find it. See if I can find that other diagram. Yeah, there's another little diagram here which I'm going to show you. This little diagram here. So there's your circle of fifths again, and there's your and it's got a table next to it as well to help you kind of interpret it. So you got flat keys, sharp keys, major, minor, and then your number of sharps or flats, as that may be. And then as you can see, when you get to 8, you've got those theoretical keys there. So I hope that helps. Wow, these are good questions. Yeah, there are 2 tetrachords in the major scale separated by a whole step. Ronald is correct. So Ronald has basically echoed everything I've said, which is cool. All right, let's see what else we have here. Waveform says, I took jazz guitar in college. Circle of fifths and key signatures were the first thing we were required to learn and understand. Yeah, absolutely. And it's the first thing that you have to learn and understand when you're doing the bare bones basics of music theory, kind of like the very first grades of music theory is dealing with the circular fifths and key signatures and all of that, and major keys and their relative minors. You had to learn them so that you knew them by rote, which is not the best way to learn, but you know, it's like the periodic table, you know, in science. You sit and you just learn it, and you learn the periodicity of each of the elements that are in the periodic table until you just know them inside out, backwards, forwards, sideways. And then once you have that kind of head knowledge about the periodicity, I can't say that word, periodicity of certain elements, then you know how you can work with those elements in the practical world. So it is with things like key signatures and major and minor scales and why they are the way they are. So you kind of learn those things a little bit by rote, and then you learn how to apply that. So I hope that helps you there. All right, let's see what else we got. Nobody noticed the F flat reference. Yeah, F flat is a theoretical key. Those tetrachords kind of sound like the Addams Family theme song. Yeah, I suppose they do. All right, let's see what else we have. Ken says, now you're talking my kind of language. I'm actually a chemistry teacher. Yes, you are a chemistry teacher. I love chemistry. I was never really very good at chemistry. But fortunately for me, my chemistry teacher was also, he also worked in the pyrotechnics industry, in the film industry. So he made things go bang. And, you know, he did things like, he made squibs for, you know, to simulate gunshot wounds and that kind of thing. So he did that, and he also made explosives for blowing things up on set. Sometimes small scale explosives, sometimes really, really big scale explosives. So he was a really inspirational chemistry teacher. And basically he said that, you know, his passion for chemistry came from, you know, what elements he could put together to make an extremely volatile reaction. And those were the things that really interested him, which, funnily enough, were the things that interested me with chemistry. I wasn't really that interested in kind of the more mundane aspects of chemistry, but certainly learning how to make things go bang and how to mix certain chemicals together in certain balances to make things go bang was very, very cool. So yeah, so he got me into that kind of thing. Let's see. Bops is here. He says, oh my, I missed the show. Yeah, you've not missed it yet. We've still got 15 minutes to go. So if you've got a question, Bops, get in there. In fact, I think I see one from you. Have you ever heard of the mu chord? Yes, I have. It's again, it's another one of those kind of theoretical chords, but it does exist. But it's known by lots of other names. Now, where does the whole mu thing come from? It's actually it's an idea, a concept created by Donald Fagen and Walter Becker to describe a particular favorite type of voicing of certain chords. So, for example, they like playing add two chords. What is an add two? Well, an add two is where you play, let's say, for example, a C major chord, but you take away the third and you play a two instead. So there's the third. 1, 2, 3. Let's drop that down to the two instead. So, you know, one of those things is their kind of sound. So, you know. So that whole set of chord changes, when you get into the chorus of this particular song, it has this add 2 chord. Now, the whole thing with the add 2 thing is that it makes it more tonally ambiguous, so it's neither major nor minor. And so that's kind of the thing that Walter and Donald were really kind of going for. And it was kind of a new kind of thing in popular music to kind of do that. So they had this kind of close voiced sounding thing, but sometimes they would open it up to a stack of fourths. So there's another song that has this kind of vamp in it. Which is all based around stacks of fourths, and then, you know, the next bit goes. So that's another kind of form of this mu chord, but there's also another form of it which you hear in the song Josie, which is where you play a chord, but then you have the bass note a fourth above it. So if I take this B flat chord, but then put this E flat on the bass, you get this completely other sound altogether. It's kind of like a major 7 chord. There's the 5, there's the major 7, and instead of having the 3rd, you have the 2 again, so there's that 2. But this time we've got a major 7, so. So that's kind of what the whole mu thing is all about. Now, mu isn't like mu as in the sound of a cow, it's M with the Greek letter U after it. And they were just being, you know, they're kind of like being mostly pretentious. But yeah, it's kind of it was their humor. Paparaptor Music says, as far as learning by rote, it is necessary in order to play the accordion. The left button keyboard is constructed according to the circle of fifths. Now that I did not know, because I know nothing about the accordion. My my brother-in-law's wife is an accordion player, but I know nothing about the instrument at all. I like the sound of the accordion. I've played with bands where they've had an accordion in the band. A lot of what we call here in Scotland, we call them ceilidh bands. They will often feature an accordion, an upright bass, or a guitar, and a guy playing a snare drum. That's kind of like your more traditional ceilidh kind of outfit. Although I've played in ceilidh bands where, you know, you've got fiddle, you've got accordion, you've got upright bass, you've got guitar, piano, and a full drum set. I've played in bands like that before at weddings. But yeah, I like the sound of the accordion, but I didn't know that about the button side of it. Take the third out. Yep. Let's see what else we got. Herbie Hancock may have started it. He might have. Let's see, what else do we have? Why is album sequencing a part of storytelling? Well, no, it isn't necessarily a part of storytelling. It is if you have a concept album. Concept albums were popular in the 70s and 80s, not quite so much now, but they certainly were. You know, the Dire Straits Brothers in Arms album, I think, is a concept album. And what is a concept album? For those of you that don't know, a concept album is that you create an album of songs where all of the songs are related to each other. So maybe the whole album tells a story from start to finish in, 7, 8, 10, or 12 songs, or however many songs it is. And the idea is to tell a story. Stories always have beginning, middle, and end. Every story has a beginning, middle, and end. Unless the idea is to leave you with a cliffhanger to set you up for the next story. And there are concept albums that do that. There are concept albums that deliberately set you up to prepare you for the next album. And it might be that there's actually a sequence of albums that are all related together, telling this, a continued saga of characters and their interaction with each other through a whole narrative that goes over several albums. So the sequencing of those kind of albums is very, very important. But if your album is not a concept album and each song is unique on its own, stands on its own, none of the characters or subject matter or anything like that in any of the other songs are related to each other, if they're, completely unrelated, then it's not a concept album and the sequencing matters less. However, there is some science to sequencing, and, producers and A&R guys and mastering engineers have perfected this to a fine art. Kind of not to have too many fast songs together, not to have too many slow songs together, kind of break them up a bit. So, and not have songs in the same key together. So if you've got like two songs in the key of A, move them apart, separate them by other songs in other keys. So all of those things go into the science of sequencing a record. Doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be that these days that all of the songs are related in terms of they are all telling the same story. It's not. Sonic Tsunami is quite correct here. He says operas were the original concept albums. Yeah, you could definitely argue that. And also, I would say symphonies, symphonic works, or suites like Hosts the Planets is another concept album, essentially. Because all of the pieces of music in the Planet Suite are obviously related, because they're all talking about the planets in the solar system, whether talking literally about the planets, as in the physical planets, or, kind of like their characters derived from the astrological ideas of the planets. Holst, it could be argued, is actually talking about both. So each planet in the suite has a personality, it has a character, and therefore each of the pieces within the suite have a personality and character. For example, you have the bringer of joy, you have Mars, the bringer of war, and then you have Neptune, which is kaleidoscopic and has less to do with specific melody and more to do with abstract shifting chords and orchestrations and tone colors and that kind of thing. Although there is some thematic material in Neptune, there is very little of it when you compare it to something like Saturn or Jupiter or, as I said, Mars, the bringer of war, where there is a lot of thematic material. But yeah, absolutely, opera is definitely an original kind of idea of a concept. All right, let's see. What else do we have? Dark Side of the Moon is definitely a concept album, for sure. John Hawke is correct. Dark Side of the Moon is a fantastic example of a concept album. There are loads and loads and loads of others. I'm sure you guys in the chat are gonna kind of observe your favorite ones. Jeff Wayne's, not Jeff Wells, Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, narrated by Richard Richard Burton, not Richard Byron. Richard Burton. Richard Burton being a Welsh actor. But yeah, it's the War of the Worlds is a fantastic thing because it's a concept album, it's a stage show, it's definitely I would say it's definitely kind of a contemporary opera. It could be regarded as such. And it's definitely a musical. But I had the original album that you're referring to, the one that features Richard Burton's narration, which is brilliant. Excellent, excellent, excellent record. Let's see. Is King of Fools by Delirious of characters and themes the one you check out? Yeah, I actually, as I said the last time you brought this up, Luke, I actually know the guys from Delirious very well personally. I was around when they were recording that album, the King of Fools album, which is all about God, basically. Ken says, turn of a friendly card from Alan Parsons, a fantastic concept album. Alan Parsons, yes. He's, to me, personally, I think he's an acquired taste. One of the things I like about Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, seeing as a few of you are kind of talking about it now, is I like the fact that I like the mix, and I like the instrumentation, because there are two drummers playing at the same time. One his drum set is on the left, the other guy is on the right, and it's fantastic. And I think you've got two basses as well, two different bass players playing at the same time, one on the left, one on the right. And I know it's two different drummers playing at the same time because when they're playing drum fills, they're playing different fills, and the two drum sets sound totally different. The one on the left is a Gretsch, the one on the right is a Ludwig. The one on the left has pasty cymbals, the one on the right is using Zildjian cymbals. How do I know this? I'm a drummer. I can identify drums and cymbals by their sound alone. I don't even have to look at the drum set. A good steak dinner is the essence as opposed to the entertainment. Such the plague of doing live gigs as a working musician. Yeah, definitely. I could not agree more with that. All right, we have 3 minutes to go. And I think we've run out of questions. The Six Wives of Henry VIII. The Six Wives of Henry VIII. I wonder if Henry was thinking that his multiple wives could become a concept album in its own right. I don't know. Maybe he did. Okay, Billy Morgan is plotting to do some collaboration work with Rich and Ronald Figura, which is cool. Yeah, have a lot of fun, you guys, with your collaborations. And I have to say, on that note, I'm very, very, very thrilled and excited and happy to see that folks who just turn up and they just watch this show have got to know each other, and they've reached out to each other, and they're starting to work together and starting to collaborate on making music. That's what my damn channel is all about, guys. That's what I started it for. I started it to teach people the art of music making, and to teach people what I know about the art of music making, and the idea to build a community of music makers who can work together making music. That was the whole point. That's why I started it. Jonny Lipsham Studios was just a name. I mean, I couldn't I couldn't think of a name for it. You know, it existed. I mean, the reason why it's studios, you know, the multiple rather than singular, is because it started as two separate studios in my head. Because one studio was the recording and mixing studio, which I have had for years. And then there was the teaching studio. So to me, the two studios are, you know, they might share the same space, but they're two kind of separate things. There's one where I record and mix and master, and then there's the other studio where I teach, and they occupy, at the moment, they occupy the same space, but they didn't used to. Way back before even YouTube existed, Jonny Lipsham Studios existed. And it existed as two separate buildings, two separate studios. There was a studio down in London, which was for recording and mixing and mastering. And then there's a studio in Edinburgh, here in Scotland, which was more about the teaching. And they started as one place, one studio, two separate rooms in London, and then I moved back to Scotland in 2006, and the teaching studio kind of started from there. And so I realized I have two studios, so I may as well call the whole thing Jonny Lipsham Studios. I had a guy down in London who looked after the studio down there, and obviously I looked after the teaching studio up here. And then the guy down in London, we shut down the studio down in London because he couldn't look after it anymore. So we basically just dissolved that and got rid of it. And so Jonny Lipsham Studios to me is kind of recording, mixing and mastering on the one hand and teaching on the other hand. And that's what the channel is. The channel is teaching. So I don't really feature anything where I actually show my finished works. Because it's not about, I don't use my YouTube channel to get me clients. I use my channel to teach you guys. That's what it's always been about. So I'm really, really thrilled and excited and loving seeing you guys reaching out to each other, getting to know each other, and then starting to work on music together. That to me is just, that's why I started the whole thing. So thank you so much, you guys, for getting together and coming together on this channel. And I really hope that, you know, all the information that I impart to you guys helps you make better music, because that's what it's all about. So on that note, we're going to end the show, but I just want to say, if you guys have further questions, and we've had some really good music theory questions tonight, which is fantastic, but if you've got further questions on any subject to do with songwriting, composing, arranging, music theory, I'm happy to do more music theory questions. That's cool. And recording, mixing, mastering, songwriting, composing, arranging, all of that. If you've got any further questions on any of that, go down to the website down there. See that? JonnyLipshamStudios.co.uk. Go to the website, and I'm going to show you where the contact form is. Let me just pull up the website. All right, so here's the website, and my many thanks to Louis at Alps Media for building and designing and hosting this little website for me. It is very much appreciated. The work that Louis does behind the scenes on my behalf is awesome and amazing, and I appreciate everything that he does for me. And I'm sure Jonny would say exactly the same thing for the things that he does for Home Studio Trainer. So this is the site. And there's kind of an excerpt from Sunday Night Live. And then we go down to the bottom. This is where I am right now. I'm sat right here. But if we go down to the bottom, there's this contact form here. Put your name in here, put your email address in here, and ask me your question. And you can state you can say, hey, this is for a Sunday Night Live question, and then you can stick your question in here and hit send message. And then that will go to my email inbox. And what I'd like to do is collate a bunch of these questions, and then next Sunday and the following Sunday, we can go through these questions, as well as taking questions from the chat like we do every Sunday. So you can get questions to me either way. If you've watched the show and you have not asked a question and we've run out of time and you haven't been able to get a question in the chat, that's fine. Or if you don't want to get a question in the chat, you'd rather reach out to me this way, you can. And I'm happy to take questions that way too. So please don't hesitate to get in touch and send me that email. and I will make sure that those email questions get answered first at the start of a show. Okay, and then we'll get into the chat questions as well. So I apologize if I've missed any of your questions in the chat. Feel free to email me those questions if I didn't get them, but we only have a finite amount of time. So thank you very much, everybody. You guys rock. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate you an absolute megaton. And I will see you guys on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified with Jonny Gibe, unless he maybe has a reason why he can't do it. But hopefully he will be here and we'll be able to do the show together, because we weren't able to do that last week. So hopefully this week we'll be able to do it together, and that would be awesome. So I will see you there on the Home Studio Trainer channel, and I wish you all a very, very good evening. Take care. Bye.